You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to episode 19 of the Resilient Podcast. I am your host, Rob Aurelius, and I welcome you to the first episode of 2025. In this episode, we're going to talk about reflecting on the challenges, growth, and lessons from 2024. And I want to share with you all how shaping your intentions and goals for 2025 are going to help you. I want to encourage you all to embrace resilience, learn from your struggles, and move forward with purpose and strength. The name of this episode is Lessons from 2024, Building a Resilient 2025. In the last episode 18, I touched base on the end of the year and the reflections and everything that I endured in 2024, what caused me to ultimately create platforms such as the Resilient Podcast, the Resilience Tribune, and pretty much just dealing with one of the most difficult years of my life. I want to correct that. It wasn't one of the difficult years of my life. It was actually the worst year of my life. A year that I'm never going to forget, 2024. And that's completely fine. I do want to thank everyone that tuned in to the 18 episodes of last year. We started this podcast back in April, and I didn't know I was going to have 18 episodes. So at the moment, I want to take this glass and make a toast to the next 18 episodes. Don't know how many episodes we'll have for this year of 2025. But I want to do a toast for the next 18. Salute. Wow. Believe it or not, that is the first shot of Terramana that I take in 2025. And the reason for that, folks, is because if you can hear my voice, I'm not sure if it's much of a difference. I was under the weather for the first few days of the year. I think most people were. So I was staying away from alcohol because I was taking some heavy antibiotics, but I'm feeling a little better. And I just wanted to, make that toast to prepare for the next 18 episodes. So first and foremost, I want to talk about what caused the Resilient Podcast to even happen. And for those of you who know the story, I'm sorry for bringing it up again. But for those of you that are tuning in, maybe for the first time, this is your first episode of the Resilient Podcast. This podcast was created to share light and to spread awareness when someone goes through a very unfortunate moment in their life. In my case, I was in a relationship with a woman that I truly love. And last year, we were supposed to make a year together. And 2.5 months after that, I was going to propose to her. And And if things had worked out my way or the way that they should be, I would have been an engaged man right now. And I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. And if I was making this podcast, it probably wouldn't be called the Resilient Podcast. But if I was sitting here today in January 2025, I would have had a ring on my finger, and I don't, unfortunately, because I didn't get a chance to propose to her. We broke up before we made a year together, and I've started this journey to heal, to try to heal the right way. So I was talking to a friend of mine who usually checks in on me every month. And this friend of mine is a female, and she asked me pretty much, what is one word that I could use to describe 2024? And I remember saying to her, oh boy, one word. Okay, challenging. And that's because that 2024 was challenging, but also it was transformative. It was a year that broke me in so many ways, but it also gave me the tools to rebuild. It really did. And, I want to welcome all of my listeners of the Resilient Podcast to this episode. And I want to share with you all why reflecting on the past year is so important for growth and for resilience. The key themes for this podcast are heartbreak, betrayal, sadness, and how they prepared me for redemption in 2025. I want to share with you all briefly a post that I made on social media for January 1st. And for those of you that are watching my podcast on YouTube, you're going to be able to see it in a second. But also for those of you who listen to this podcast on Spotify, what I'm sharing with everyone right now is a picture of me on January 1st. I took this picture on January 1st in Hartford, Connecticut. That's where I was. And this is what I said in the post. 2024, heartbreak, betrayal, sadness, depression, uncertainty. 2025, redemption. Last year, every part of me, my heart, my spirit, my will to keep going, I faced heartbreak that shattered me, betrayals that shook me, and moments of sadness and depression that left me questioning everything. There were days I felt lost, broken, and uncertain about my future. But through it all, I learned one undeniable truth. Resilience is not just about surviving. It's about finding the strength to redesign, rebuild, and reclaim. Shout out to my friend Seth Rollins. No matter how many times life knocks you down, this year, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. 2025 is about reclaiming my narrative, embracing redemption, and becoming the master of my own resilience. It's about proving to myself that even in the darkest moments, there is light, hope, and the power to transform. To anyone carrying the weight of their own battles, let this be the year we rise together. Let's chase our dreams with unapologetic determination, build the lives we deserve, and find joy in the journey. 2025, I welcome you. Let's make this year the year we rise stronger and more resilient than ever. So that was a post that I shared on social media, January 1st. And, last year, as I mentioned a few moments ago, was the worst year of my life. I thought that the worst year of my life was 2019 when I lost my grandmother in December on my sister's birthday. That was the end of the year. That was the saddest and worst moment of my life at the time. But the worst year that I've ever had in my 38 years of living was 2024, because in January of 2024, as I was getting ready for a trip out to Florida, Max and I had started off the year a little shaky because we had a conversation after Christmas where I pretty much thought I was doing the right thing by saying to her, hey, look, these are a few things that I've had on my mind about our relationship, and I just want to share with you. You know, normally when you express to your partner how you feel, they either, you know, process it and say, I'm very sorry for making you, I'm very sorry for making you feel the way that you did. Or I'm very sorry for making you feel that way. And I didn't really get that from her. I got more of a, well, if that's how you feel, why are we even together? What am I doing here? And it made me feel bad because I said to myself, man, you know, just the way she responded just shows that she's not really capable of understanding what accountability is. And everything I shared with her, she took it as an attack. She didn't take it as constructive criticism. She didn't take it as, hey, babe, you know, you're doing things that I don't like. Can you please work on them? Because I really care about you and it bothers me to see you acting the way you do. Instead, she took it like an attack, like you're a bad person, you know, you're this and you're that, you're a monster. And I wish she didn't take it that way. And, you know, sometimes people say to you, also be mindful of the delivery of how you explain something to someone. And I said, you know, I probably could have been a little bit more mindful, because even though the intention was to deliver the message to her in a way that she could understand it, she probably took it as, okay, he's not happy with me, and now I need to remove myself from the equation. And that's what happened eventually. In January, she expressed to me that, you know, she had been thinking about us and she had been thinking about our relationship. And she realized that she felt that I needed someone more like me. She felt that she couldn't give me the love that I wanted. And she felt that it was best that we parted ways. And she also said something to me that crushed me. And it crushed me every single time that I thought about those exact words, because she said it to me over the phone. She said to me, I don't feel that I'm your soulmate. So, speaking about challenges, my friend asked me, what were the biggest challenges you faced in 2024? And my response to her was, heartbreak was the most significant one. You know, I lost someone that I thought would be a part of my life forever. And like I said in the quote, the betrayal that I felt and the depression that followed pushed me to my limits. There were also moments of uncertainty, you know, feeling lost and questioning my purpose in life. And my friend said, well, what helped you push through those dark times? And I remember saying to him, I wasn't expecting things to go the way they did. You know, 2024 was supposed to be a great year for me, and it wasn't. You know, it was the worst year ever. And it took time for me to process it. I'm still processing it. It wasn't easy. But I leaned into reflection. I started journaling and creating the Resilient Podcast as an outlet, and creating the Resilience Tribune as well. But, you know, creating the Resilient Podcast, each episode became a reminder that resilience isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. And I want to share with you a key moment where I realized that you could either stay broken or fight to rise again. And when this heartbreak occurred, and in March we finally broke up, and WrestleMania season was there, and I had to go to Philadelphia all by myself. Well, go to WrestleMania all by myself because she lived in Philadelphia. But when I was there and I realized that I had to watch, these 2 nights of finally seeing The Rock in action, finally seeing Cody Rhodes finish the story, I went back home so shattered because before I went home, this is what I did. I went to her new place and I left her some goodbye gifts, and I left her a letter, a card that just said goodbye. We had broken up in March, and she had said that it was okay for us to remain connected. We didn't have to talk every day. I don't really know where she wanted that to go, how she had it planned for us. But when I gave her that card and she read it, in fact, it had made her immediately decide, okay, cutting contact with him. We're not talking anymore. I had removed her off of social media, so that pissed her off. And we never spoke after that. We never spoke after she read that card. Again, that's if she read the card, but we never spoke after she realized that I deleted her on social media. We had that one last conversation in mid-April, and that was it. But the moment that I realized that I was doing good for myself was when the time came that I was supposed to be ready to propose to her out in the city of Las Vegas on the 19th, which was her birthday of November. I could have spent that day just crying and depressed and sad. And instead, what I did was I launched the Resilience Tribune, a platform that helps people share their stories about resilience. And that's where I ultimately realized that, look, I can't stay broken. I have to rise, and I have to help others that are broken rise as well too. So I was proud of myself for that. So then my friend asked me, how is 2025 going to be different for you? And I said, 2025, again, back to my Instagram post, is about redemption. It's about reclaiming my narrative and proving to myself that I can rise stronger, wiser, and more intentional than ever before. It's about becoming a master of my resilience. And that's what I intend to do. So my friend said, well, that's great, but what specific goals do you have for this year? And I said, professionally, I want to grow the Resilient Podcast and the Resilience Tribune. Personally, I'm focused on self-love, forgiveness, and building meaningful connections. That's all I want to do, is just build meaningful connections. Like I don't want to continue to entertain connections with people that just don't serve any purpose for me and also don't serve any purpose for them. Because, folks, sometimes we only think about what's best for us, but in a whole, ultimately, we have to think about what's best for us and what's best for them. We can't be selfish. We got to make sure that we always do what's best for us in a whole. So my friend said to me, how can someone take their challenges and turn them into growth opportunities? And I remember talking about this at some point last year. And I remember one time I was talking to the youth somewhere, and I said to them this exact same thing. I said, look, it starts with acceptance. You have to acknowledge what happens, but don't let it define you. Then focus on small steps. Set realistic goals, practice gratitude, and surround yourself with supportive people. That's just how I feel. And they said, okay, well, what are some tools or habits that have helped you build resilience? And I remember a friend of mine, his name is Nico. We were talking about resilience, and I remember asking him, what does resilience mean to you? And I remember him saying to me, resilience should be something in your toolbox. And when this friend of mine asked me, what are some tools or habits that have helped you build resilience, it reminded me of that answer the toolbox thing. And with me, what helped me build resilience was this book right here that was given to me as a Christmas gift in December of 2023. The Christmas gift that was given to me from her that I hold so dearly into my heart. And, year one is down. This is now year two of this book, 3 more years left. And, for the first time ever, I did something called journaling. I never journaled in my life, but journaling has been such a game changer for me. It helps me process emotions and track progress of everything. And, mindfulness practices like meditation and breathing exercises also have kept me grounded. These are things that I never did before. My advice to everyone, and some tips that I want to share with you all, because this is something that I remember before Christmas, that before a few weeks before Christmas, my ex and I were talking on the phone, and I was getting ready to spend Christmas with her. And I remember saying to her, like, babe, like, I don't feel good, and I have the text messages somewhere in our thread. And I remember sharing with her, like, I'm not happy where I am in life. I want to do better. And one of the things that she shared with me was, well, when you come over here, let's create a vision board. So my advice to people is creating a vision board, prioritizing self-care, and seeking therapy or mentorship when needed. I do want to say very quickly that if anyone out there after this episode, after you listen to this or watch this episode, you cannot afford therapy, please reach out to me. I will help you get therapy. I will get you on track. And if you're not seeking therapy, you're seeking mentorship, then that's fine too. I suggest if you can't or don't, or you're not interested in therapy, please seek mentorship. They both have come hand in hand for me, and they both help me out. But, one thing that I wanted to share with you all, and I wanted to get it out of the way before I continue, is during the holidays, I came around this book, and this book is called You Did It. And this book is so beautiful because look at the size of it. For those of you that can't see it, because you're listening to this episode on Spotify, it's a cute little yellow book. And the reason why I got this book is because it's literally the theme colors of the Resilient Podcast, which is yellow and black, or black and yellow in my case. But these are winning quotes and affirmations for celebration, motivation, and congratulation. This book is so cute. Here, it shows you who you want to give it to and who it's from, which is you. And look, this book just shows you nothing but beautiful quotes. Look at this. The secret of success is constancy of purpose. Never be limited by people's limited imaginations. Your passions propel you. This is beautiful. It's a beautiful book. Speaking about books, I want to share with you all, before I share with you all the last question that my friend asked me, that, like I mentioned before, I'm into year 2 of this book now, this 5-year question a day memory journal that my ex-girlfriend gave me for Christmas. And last year, I started journaling in this book for January 1st. And last year, for 2024, the question was, what is your number 1 New Year's resolution? And my New Year's resolution last year was to be a better person, period. This year, I wrote to become the most resilient and kindest person to ever exist. That's just to show you that the answers are going to change. For January 2nd, it asked me, what do you want to be different about this year? And I wrote, last year, I want to be at peace with my family for once. This year, my response was everything. I want everything to be different about last year, this year. For January 3rd, the question was, what did you learn from last year? And I wrote, what goes around comes around. And this year I wrote, life is truly what you make it. And then for January 4th, it says, what mistake do you vow to never repeat again? And last year I wrote, I vow to never take those I love for granted ever again. This year I wrote, I vow to never let people take me for granted ever again. So notice that the responses are going to change every year. And like I said before, this is year 2 of that memory journal, 3 more years to go. And then once those 5 years are over, I'm going to look at this journal and be like, wow, I started writing in this journal during my healing journey. And hopefully by the time that this is it, when 2028 comes around, I wonder what I'm going to say then, how I'm going to be thinking then in 2028. But, folks, I said before that life is what you make it, and I truly believe in that. Life can throw so much at us, but ultimately we can kind of dictate how things are going to play out. Are we going to be warriors, or are we going to be prisoners? Are we going to be victims of everything that happened to us, or are we going to learn from them and move on and don't allow it to happen ever again? It's truly up to us. So with that being said, before I wrap up, I wanted to share with you all that the first post of the Resilience Tribune is set to be published this month, January 2025. And don't worry about it. I will be informing you all on social media when it is going to be published, but it's going to be published fairly soon. And it's actually going to be coming from me, the first post. And I look so forward to it. In order for you to stay tuned, always make sure to visit our website, which is www.resiliencetribune.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at TRP Tribune. Follow the Resilience Podcast on Instagram and Twitter at TheResilientPod, as you see down here. But if you ever feel like you want to come on the podcast to share your story about resilience, feel free to reach out to me. And if you don't want to be on the podcast, but you want to share your story, you want to publish your story on the Resilience Tribune, feel free to reach out to us. Just reach out to us at info@resiliencetribune.com. I remember when I finished episode 18 last year, I felt like so much weight was on me. And I said to myself, man, I just did 18 episodes. And I got to say goodbye to this year so I could introduce the new year. And, when I started the first episode of the Resilient Podcast with my former co-host, I felt so great. I felt so good. But then as time went by, I just felt this weight on me over and over and over. I can't say to you that I feel that same weight now, because I feel like it's the beginning all over again, because this is the first episode of the new year. But, when that last episode ended, episode 18, I felt so much weight. And I was like, man, I just did 16 episodes by myself, because the first 2 were with Josh, but the last 16 episodes were just me. And I felt like I've been doing it for so long, but I'm just getting started. That's why I made a toast to the next 18 episodes. And I look forward to them. And I also look forward to the guests that we're going to have on the show this year. I look forward to it so much. I already have a few people in mind. I've already reached out to them. Most of them have already accepted. Some of them I'm still waiting to hear back. But I'm so excited, folks. I'm so excited. And I just look forward to the year of redemption. So, folks, remember how I was talking to you all about therapy and mentorship? One of the things that can help you alleviate some of this stress and whatnot is CBD oil. I know that not everyone's a fan of it, but for those of you who don't believe, trust me, I have some products for you that will really help out. And they come from my friend Victor Melgar, my business associate and friend Victor Melgar. And you can check out these products by visiting his website at www.nalahealth.com. And when you go on the website, he usually has a free assessment form that you could just fill in some information, explain what you're feeling, whether it's depression, anxiety, and he will find the right formulas to help you alleviate those symptoms. The best part about it is that if you listen to the Resilient Podcast and you're listening to this podcast right now, you're watching this podcast right now, when you go on that website, you have a coupon code that you can use to save 10% off your purchase. And that coupon code is TRP10. 10% off. It's right here on the screen. TRP10. Put it in the, at checkout and you receive 10% off your purchase. Thank me later. I'm also excited about the merch for the Resilience Tribune that's available right now and the ones to come this year. You want to find out the merch? Go back to our website, resilienctribune.com, click on TRP shop, and there you are. The merch for the Resilient Podcast. When you purchase something, a percentage will be going to proceeds. And just let me know that you got something and share it on social media. Use the hashtags TRP. Use the hashtags TheResilientPod or Resilience Tribune. And make sure to tag me. Tag Rob Aurelius, tag the Resilience Tribune, and tag the Resilient Podcast. Man, I'm so excited. It's going to be a great year. But, the last question my friend asked me, and I wanted to leave it for the very end, was what one message do I want to leave my listeners with as they start 2025? And this is kind of like your message to the world. And my response to that is, folks, your story isn't defined by the pain you've endured, but by the strength you find to rise again. No matter how tough 2024 was, trust me, I know, this is your year to reclaim your power, rediscover your purpose, and rise stronger than ever. Remember, folks, this is the year of redemption. This is the year that we allow resilience to redefine us. We're out there to redesign, to reclaim, and to rebuild. We're redesigning ourselves. We're reclaiming who we once were. We were strong at one point. And we're rebuilding what was destroyed. So with that being said, this concludes episode 19 of the Resilient Podcast. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Again, we are going to make 2025 one of the greatest years of our lives. And the only way we can do that is by being resilient. So, folks, I look forward to seeing you all in episode 20 of the Resilient Podcast. And all I can say to you all for now is to be the change you want to see. And remember that kindness goes a long way. Don't do to people what you don't want them to do to you. And that's just a fact. You want people to be kind to you, be kind to others, but it starts with you. Don't go out there looking for someone to be kind with you. Go be kind out there first and let kindness find its way back to you through good karma. So, folks, it's been a pleasure. Episode 19, the first episode of the Resilient Podcast of 2025 is in the books. And I will see you all soon. I am your host, Rob Aurelius. And for now, this is goodbye. And remember to remain resilient. And I love you all. Talk to you all soon. Peace.